This is Firecrackers, and we're just about to get started. So we have Professor Oyewale Tomori, who is joining us live from Ibadan. Standby, he's a virologist. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Okay, all right. So straight to the topic we have at hand, which is management of disease outbreak in Nigeria. We know that Ebola is having a resurface in some African countries, and there is fear that it might get to Nigeria. But if we are to look at how government has managed the Ebola outbreak we have in Nigeria in the past, and we know that technology has even improved when it comes to medicine, the technology used in medicine. Do you think that Nigeria might be better equipped at this time to handle outbreak of Ebola? We hope it does not reach Nigeria, but if it reaches Nigeria, are we capable of handling it better than we did the last time?
I wish I could say with confidence that we would. Yes, we did well in 2014 when we came into Lagos. The Lagos state government came out with assistance from everybody. And like it was reported, we reported only 20 cases and 8 deaths. But when we see the way we are handling Lassa fever in Nigeria annually, the way every year we have the same problem, increasing number of cases of Lassa fever in the country, it doesn't give me confidence that if Ebola comes, we'll be able to handle it. We say we are prepared, but preparation is different from being ready. A student can prepare for an exam. The result that will tell us whether it was ready or not. So, like I said, with the way we've been handling other issues, it's like we've forgotten the lessons of 2014. And that's why a disease like Lassa rages on every year, and we don't seem to have a solution to it.
All right, but from your point of view, like you said, Lassa fever is an outbreak that we have yearly, especially in north central Nigeria. Not only there, but it still spreads across Nigeria. What do you think we could have done differently with Lassa fever so we would not keep having a retell of the same story over and over again?
You see, I think the basic thing, what Lagos did at that time, simple disease surveillance, what we call contact tracing, getting the community involved, people reporting the cases to them, and then following up, tracing the contacts, isolating the cases, and managing them. Those are the basic essentials of preventing a disease or of nipping a disease in the bud and doesn't become a big and major issue. I think we somehow seem to have forgotten our community that they have a major role to play. This issue about, I had somebody talking about people coming into the country and all that one. How well, really, can NCDC tell us what they have done with those forms? Has there been any feedback of the success of it or not? And those of us who have been at the port, when we're coming in, we know that the way they handle it is a joke. And nobody takes it seriously. People don't fill the form rightly, and they don't do it correctly. So we need to give awareness to our people that this is for your own good. It's for the life of everybody. And therefore, take it seriously. And when NCDC says, man the pot, let them give us a feedback of what they found by all those things. If you keep telling me to fill a form and I don't hear anything out of it, of course, forget about it. I won't do it next time you ask me. I think the sound is lost.
Where we are having much problem. Where is the problem coming from? Because we know that the NCDC, they always try to inform us, okay, they had suspected cases, they had confirmed cases, but it seems that that might still not be enough. So what would you pinpoint to be the challenge in making sure that they get enough information and then it is still disseminated to the public so that they would be aware and do the right thing so that they might protect themselves and even their neighbors?
You've hit the nail on the head. You said disseminate information. It is not the gathering information and putting it on your website. Who reads your website? Get that information in a form that the people on the street make use of what is going on. Everybody is using the, what do you call it, this WhatsApp and all those things that we're doing. What can they make use of such things? Because what people read, not their website. Get that information in a way that is amenable, that people can understand it, so that they're aware. Keep alerting them on a daily basis. There's a danger coming on. When you talk about people going out of the country, for example, you are focusing on Uganda, but you forget that there's a hub that brings everybody. Anybody come from that eastern part of Africa who has to pass through Addis Ababa or some of those big ports, Kenya, where they can mix with people who came in from Uganda. That's the kind of message you need to be sending out. Don't tell me, oh, those coming from Uganda. Those coming from that area of Africa. Particularly, as I said, Addis Ababa is the hub where everybody can meet. So anybody coming from that area should be properly monitored when they are coming in. And we should take it seriously. This form filling at the port, we shouldn't take it with the carelessness we're taking it right now.
Okay, all right. Now, when we are looking at how diseases usually is in Nigeria, we get disease and then we are oftentimes relying on foreign aid to help us manage diseases. We have issues of during COVID-19 time, we had vaccines coming in from foreign agencies to try to help us prevent it here in Nigeria. And then we also, it's not only for COVID, a lot of disease outbreak that we usually have when it comes to vaccine development, even for tropical diseases, neglected tropical diseases that are usually predominant in Africa, we are still always relying on foreign aid. And now that the new president of the United States is stopping foreign aids, especially to developing countries, what lesson do you think Nigeria as a country could take from this so that we would not always be at the mercy of foreign aids all the time that we are having diseases that they sometimes even originated from here, but we are always relying on foreign aid to take care of it?
You know, one of the, a lot of people may not like Trump, but what he's doing now, I think is a great thing for us in Africa. Time for us to wake up and stop depending on resources from outside the country. You know, they call us, what the name they give us? They say we are resource limited, resource handicap, resource constrained. That's the greatest lie you can ever tell anybody in the world. We are not resource limited. We are only resource wasteful and we are resource squandering. If you don't know your problem, you never find a solution to it. So we think we are resource limited and we think we are handicapped, and that's why we go begging for everything. But we know we are not. We have enough resources in our country, if we use it properly, to take care of our problem. Other countries are using their own money to do that. Why are we waiting for donors to come and take up? When we're making the babies, we don't call donors. When it's time to give them vaccine, we start calling donors. If you must give your children, take care of your children, then take note of all the things you are doing. So let me put it this way. At the time enough, it's a wake-up call for all of us in Africa, especially in Nigeria. But I'm glad, I think there was a report recently where the Nigerian government said they've put some money aside to forestall the outcome of what Trump was going to do. It is not a piecemeal thing. It's a general thing. We should look at the whole health system, the whole of our system in particular. We have enough resources in this great country to take care of the basic essentials of our people. But when our leaders, our politicians waste this money, and that's why we become beggars to the world. So back to this, reorder our priorities, get our funding to what we need to do, take care of the health of the people. And the amount of money we use to prevent disease is much, much smaller. It's affordable than having to wait for us to get funds to control those disease outbreaks. How much money do you put on somebody who has died or if a disease you can't prevent?
That we know that the federal government recently granted approval for Ministry of Health and Social Welfare to ratify the African Medicines Agency, that is the AMA treaty. How do you see this initiative probably influencing how we view our own homemade drugs, that is our own locally produced drugs in Africa? Because if a lot of Nigerians actually do not necessarily trust the drugs that they manufacture in the country, especially the ones that they do with herbs and things like that, but they always have this confidence when it comes to the one that is coming into the country. So with this treaty that is signed, do you think that it might probably change Nigerians' mind when it comes to embracing homegrown remedies and solutions to the medical problems that we have that is endemic in our country?
This is a treaty we have signed years ago, but I'm glad we finally got to it. It's the beginning of us to begin to look inwards, to solve those problems. Like you said, many of my generation, there were no hospitals in my village. but we grew up on those traditional medicine. It is the duty of all scientists to begin to investigate those things. You saw what the Chinese did. They did not abandon their own tradition. They followed it, they scientifically carry out research into it, and that's where we are. So I think this depends on Trump to give us money. It is for us to put our money where our mouth is, and this treaty that the government has signed is a first step in the right direction.
Okay, and what about for the medical professionals themselves? Because a lot of medical professionals that journalists usually talk to, they always seem to have this aversion when it comes to the African medicine, especially when it comes to herbs. They usually bring up cases of it not having a dosage, it affecting some, having dire side effects, which we could also argue same too for the Western medicine, because you could use a medicine now and it's going to change your whole body system so to the negative way. So despite the fact that both of these drugs usually have bad side effects, none of them is completely devoid of having bad side effects, but we still have medical professionals who are not totally welcoming of the native ones. So how do we bridge that gap if the ones that are on the front, that they are supposed to be the ones probably encouraging people and themselves to carry out this research, they are the ones that usually have this resistance towards it? So how do we bridge the gap if our medical professionals themselves are not willing to accept the African medicine?
Thank you very much. Just as we are appealing to our government to look inward, so also we should look to the researchers. I already mentioned that at the beginning. We should look to our medical people and our researchers to come down and climb down from their arrogant position, to see, like I said, many of us grew up without Western medicine. So if you survive in those days, something must be good in it. It is in our position to come down, stoop down to the level of our people. In fact, the word is not stoop down, to raise ourselves to the level of our people in the past. And then about what is it, how did they do it? And use our scientific knowledge to bring out the best out of all these things. When we go to these traditional areas and say, show me what you have, of course, they're not going to show you because you're coming to them with arrogance. Remember, the only way we can be of advantage to them is that if we improve the situation and even if we better their life from what it is. So if they're making their money and livelihood from the traditional medicine, my intervention should be to enhance that for them to do better than they are doing and get the results. So first of all, we as scientists, we need to come down from an arrogant table or chair and come down and learn about our people and be relevant to the needs of our people. Find out what is happening and then use that science that we have to make it better for them.
Okay, all right. And then we know that whenever we are talking about issues of health, doing research, one of the things that always come up is the issue of funding, because a lot of people say they actually want to do these things, but then they are not getting funding from the government. And then we had cases in the past where the foreign pharmaceutical used our people here as guinea pig. That was far back, like almost 28 years ago or thereabout. But if we did not learn from that, and then we still have allocation for health being little, what advice would you give to the government when it comes to funding research, especially when it comes to health and creation of medicine to save our own people here?
Thank you very much. You know, the issue of being used as guinea pigs, I think we also need to disabuse our mind. A lot of the vaccines that come out, somebody has been tested with it before they bring it to us. So if those people can accept to be guinea pigs, what's wrong with us becoming part of it, being guinea pigs? You cannot eat your cake and have it and say, oh, they didn't test this virus in my country, this vaccine in my country. Therefore, I'm not going to use it. But when they call you to come and join in the test, you say, oh, no, I don't want to be used as guinea pig. We have to make up our mind what we want. If we want to test, after all, the drugs we are calling on our people to use, they must be using some people as guinea pigs. So we must participate in all these clinical trials, whether we like it or not. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned what happened at the, I think it was 1994, if I remember, the Pfizer tests or what happened. But remember, Pfizer couldn't come into the country without approval of somebody within your government approved that thing illegally or whatever. So we are responsible for some of the problems we are causing ourselves. Pfizer couldn't fly into Kano and do what they wanted to do without anybody from one of the ministries approving them coming in. So when we are blaming all these external people, blame our people also. You remember some of the cases that Obasanjo and Buhari had to go overseas to go and make a case for Nigeria. Somebody signed that document in the ministry of whatever ministry signed it. So let's examine ourselves. We are responsible for some of the problems they are having. So back to the question you are saying, we need to now come out and be bold enough, get involved in what is going on in the new drugs that are coming up. Right now, the Ebola in Uganda, a new vaccine is being tested. People are coming out and getting used to it. But if he's coming to Nigeria, he says, oh no, I don't want to be a guinea pig. Somebody has to be a guinea pig somewhere. And they were guinea pigs for the vaccines we're using here today. So what's wrong with us being guinea pigs?
Aspect of having clinical trials, having these test trials, should the people who are partaking in it not be duly informed? Because the one that took place in 1996, it seems as if the parents were saying that they were not told that it is experimental and it's something new that they are trying. At least if they had signed some forms, then the company itself might have been protected from these allegations. But since these things are not signed, what about the ethical part of it? If fine, we need guinea pigs, so to speak, to test efficacy of drugs. But should we not also consider the ethical and moral side of it too?
No clinical trial is done without consideration of ethical rules, whether they're doing it in Europe or wherever. The rules are there, the guidelines are there. People you have what you call informed consent. You are going to go there and you don't just pick me on the street and then start saying I'm part of the trial. You read it to me, I understand it, I make up my mind, I want to do it, I don't want to do it. Nobody forces anybody. So let's go back to what we're saying about the Pfizer trial. The average man on the street is the educated people like us who signed the form and allow Pfizer to come in. It's not the man in the street. It is my duty to explain this thing to my people. This is what is happening. These are the side effects. This is the benefit. Anything you do, you weigh the benefit over the problems, and say if the benefits are more, then you accept it. There's no drug you use that doesn't have a side effect. There's not, even if you drink water too much, you're going to have some problem. And if out of 10 people you give this vaccine, and out of the 10, 8 people survive, but you don't give it, 10 of them die, what's your choice? Will you use the vaccine or will you wait to get the disease? Those are the messages we need to pass to our people. I don't think there's anybody who does clinical trial without looking at all the ethical consideration. Most of the trials we're doing in Nigeria, I know that people are informed. They even translate it to the local language. And if they don't understand, you call an elderly person who understands to explain it to them. So nothing is done that. What happened in Kano was an aberration. Some irresponsible government official signed something. We shouldn't, because of that, discontinue our clinical trials. No, it's still left for me and you to do what is right. The ethical issue for me to do the right thing, that's what we're asking for. And if that is done, there's no reason why none of us should be involved in clinical trials.
Okay, all right. And then what would be your advice to governments when it comes to funding research so that we would be having our own locally made drugs for different diseases that we have in the country?
So you see, you raised a very, very important point. I think one of the things, ignorance is very bad. You see, the returns on research, returns on investment in research is almost about 1,000 times more than what you get. Go and see what happened. Those who invested in the vaccine, see the millions they are raking and putting in their bank account. A government that puts its money into research is going to reap benefits for the good of the people. So this is the message we need to tell our government. That internal, the little amount of money you put into it, which will eventually be translated to be big thing and big tax for you, why are we not thinking about that? I mean, these are the messages we need to, I'm glad you raised it up. Message you get to our government, when you invest in research, the returns are million-folds. And the examples, the guy who discovered the internet, how much did they put in it? So how much are they making out of internet today? And so many other things that you and I are using. You're talking of WhatsApp, you're talking of bank transfer, all this. Somebody developed that, and the whole world is using it. So our country, our government, our people must begin to see that there is need to put some money into research, and that amount of money you put into research is 1/10, 1/100 of what we benefit from it. And let that message go to our government. Put money into research. Don't depend on other people's research. You're going to be paying for it. You don't get anything by depending on other people's research. Do your own, solve your own problem.
Comes to innovation, creation of some of these remedies to diseases that have been ailing us in Nigeria or even Africa. We've had some Africans who came up in the past and then they had this draft, they conducted their research and then they gave solutions to some of these diseases. But then suddenly they just seem to disappear. Although there is a conspiracy theory about that when it comes to the West and then eliminating things that might affect them when it comes to generating money through the pharmaceuticals. So how would you say the government of our own countries could actually help these people that are coming up with this solution? Maybe when it comes to protection of their lives, their properties, their families, because it has happened quite a number of times that now Africans that have come up, even not only in Africa alone, even in some of these advanced countries, people who have come up with cheaper alternative sources to diseases or problems, they just suddenly disappear and no one hears from them anymore. So what do you think the government of our own country could do in protecting these talented individuals?
It's not the government alone. Government can do it. Government up to a point, put fund research. Translating research into product is the business of the private industry. But the private industry in Africa is buy and sell. They would never invest money into it. They're only waiting to reap the most benefit, just buy and sell. All the countries, I mean, we mentioned COVID vaccine, Pfizer, whatever, Moderna, whatever, they put money into that, but they reap the benefit. It wasn't the government of the United States that did that. It was Pfizer, which is a private company. This is where the private comes in. The government comes up to a point, create the enabling environment for good research to be done. The product then is transferred to the private industry. And private industry must change their attitude, not just go and buy something from China and come and sell to me, go back to China and go and say, you're improving China, you're worsening your situation. So we need to get, when those research products are done, I mean, research results are out, then it is then for industry to work together with the government. But then the government must create those any environment. If they're going to, you know what it is to go into industry in Nigeria, tax here, tax there, tax there. So all of us must work together. The government and the private sector must work together. Each one has his role to do at its own pace. So we need to identify those roles, let government do its role, let private do its role, and where both of them need to join, let's identify it and get it done. And that's the only way we can ever make a difference. Create the enabling environment for all these things to function. Electricity, water, tax, all those kind of things must be, that's government business. Industries, so them invest in that and make something out of it. They make their gain. Government still gain from that because they will tax you for the profit. So it's gaining again for everybody. So I don't see why we're so I don't know. I don't want to use the word stupid. Why we're like this in our region.
Okay, all right. Just one final question before we let you go. This issue of brain drain that we're having in Nigeria, we have our medical professionals leaving the country in droves, and there's no how that is still going to affect us here. So what would be your advice to the government when it comes to management of this brain drain syndrome that we seem to be having often in our medical sector?
If we don't change, not just the medical sector alone, a lot of people are leaving. We're only focusing on the medical sector. People are leaving this country in droves. The question we'll be asking, why are they leaving? The environment, the enabling environment for them to function. A lot of people are not leaving because of money or whatever. You train as a doctor. You can't get the appointment. You get to the hospital, you can't even see what to work with. Professionally, you are disappointed. So, of course, people go out to satisfy their professional thing. But the law I'm saying is that our government must create the enabling environment for people to stay. Don't talk of building capacity when you cannot retain the capacity. And the way to retain the capacity is to have that conducive environment where that capacity you have trained can function effectively. I keep saying it, my generation stayed because there was everything that I needed to do. I didn't have to go overseas. I didn't study outside Nigeria. I did all my study here. And by the grace of God, what Nigeria gave me, I can stand my own anywhere because my government created the enabling environment for me to stay. So when we are calling on diaspora to come home to what? What drove them away in the first place? The poor environment. Has it improved? No, it has gotten worse. and then you want them to come back. Come back to what? So our government must tackle this thing from the bottom. Create that enabling. Is there safety? All these are issues that keep people at home. Those are the things government address your own first, and the people will stay. Nobody will beg them. Improve the situation. You see how the diaspora, even Trump is driving them out now. They don't have anywhere to go. So we need to improve that enabling environment at home to make sure that the people we have trained are staying. Simple. ABC.
All right, we thank you so much, Professor Tomori, for joining us live on Firecrackers today. Thank you so much for sharing with us from the wealth of your experience. We truly appreciate your inputs.
Very much. I hope the fire will crack our government to the right to do the right thing.
We could only hope. Thank you so much.